I'm back. Hey folks, it's been a while. I am coming back to do another video on YouTube. Reason being, my many fans were clamoring for another one, by which I mean Nick Lishko asked me yesterday, he's like, hey, you should do another video sometime. So here it is, Lishko. Um, so this is the top 10 games that are not in my 2020 top 100. I'm not doing the top 100 again this year. I feel like I want to do that every other year, so I probably will do that going forward. But these are the top 10 games that were not involved, that were not on the top 100. Most of these I have not played. I had not played last year when I was doing my top 100. One of them I had. So my methodology in coming to these 10 are I looked on Boardgamegeek because I log all my plays for all the games I played within the last year, deleted the ones on the top 100, narrowed it down to about 26 that I thought might be on this list, then 14, narrowed it down further. I added one that I realized I hadn't played in the past year, but I had played on Board Game Arena and I played it in person as well, and it should have been on the top 100. We'll get to that in a bit. And then I just sorted out the top 10. So without any further ado, my top 10 games that were not on my top 100. Number 10 is Cryptid. So I picked this game up. I'd heard of it, but wasn't all that familiar. Kind of picked it up on a whim just because it was cheap in a local group here. That's how I get a lot of my games. And in this game, you are trying to discover the cryptid. It is essentially a better version of Clue, because you have all these different pieces of terrain, and then everyone has knowledge of one thing about where the cryptid could be. And when you put the map out, there's only one spot that is where the cryptid is. But you have to ask other people in stuff. You have to be like, what could the cryptid be here? And they'll tell you yes or no based on their clue. So you have to discover it based on that. Fantastic game. I don't know how much replayability I'll get out of this because once you've played it a couple of times, you're like, oh, okay, I see it now. You get past that initial discovery, but the initial discovery is fantastic and amazing. So I do highly recommend Cryptid. Number 9 is a game I don't own. Of course, I only own, I think, 6 of these games out of the top 10. Number 9 is a game called Trajan. It's by Stefan Feld, who is a fantastic designer, and you will see him again on this list. Trajan is a game that my friend Bob introduced me to. He owns it. It's one of those games where everything gets you points and you try and get your points in different ways. Stefan Feld is very much like this, marginally getting slightly more points than the other people, and you win by the end of the game. The thing that I really like about this game that I hadn't seen in any other game other than Mancala is that it takes the Mancala mechanism of grabbing a bunch of things out of one bowl, putting one down in each of the bowls, and wherever you land, in Mancala, you might get to go again, or you might get to grab the other person's pieces. In this game, wherever you land, that is the action that you do. But the pieces that you're using also have different colors. You can create different combinations. And so that little twist on Stefan Feld's typical formula makes it a fantastic game. That's Trajan. Number 8 is a game called Brass Birmingham, which I was introduced to by my new friend Tim, who I didn't know yet last year when I did this list. Brass Birmingham is a second version of a game called Brass that was ranked very highly on Boardgamegeek. This one is as well. And essentially it's a game where you are like a coal baron or magnate in industrial Britain, which the theme doesn't sound that great, but it does mean you get to talk to each other like, oh, yes, quite so. Yes, will you be going down to so that's excellent, of course, getting to role play as a coal baron or whatnot. In the game, you are essentially traveling to different places on the map, laying down your canals, your railroads, your roads, and getting various different kinds of industry. It's kind of hard to explain, and I want to play it again now that I know how to play it. But it's a game I've been thinking about a lot about lately, and so that's a good indication that I enjoy it. And so that's Brass Birmingham. Number 7 is a game called Katara. This game, which comes from Yellow, I I went recently to Origins, which is a board game convention in Columbus, and I didn't play a demo of this, but some of my friends did who I was there with, and I think my friend Jonathan bought a copy of the game. And on the last day of the convention, he was like, "Oh, let me teach you Katara." So I sat down, played it. The convention was ending in 10 minutes, and after I took my last turn, I ran over to the booth to buy a copy because it's so cool and so fun. In this game, the theme is a kind of African mythological sort of theme. But in this game, you are drafting these cards to get various different actions you do on your turn. It's fairly simple. It's also a combat game, but when you destroy someone else's in combat, you don't actually destroy them. You force them to retreat. And so that means Amy actually likes it because despite being a conflict game, you don't really being attacked doesn't hurt you so much. It hurts a little bit, but you get to come right back out and do a huge attack on your turn, which is fun. Also, there are, I don't know how well you can see this picture, but there are centaurs that are cheetah ladies with big afros, and that's pretty awesome. And there's a little mini for them too. Well, I shouldn't say mini, a little wooden meeple for them. Yeah, very fun. Cool theme, great game. That's Katara. Number 6, I don't own. It is a game called Mariposas, which I believe is Spanish for butterfly or something like that. Anyway, it's a game about butterflies. I played this one for the first time this past Sunday. Really enjoyed it. Love the game. It is designed in such a way that you start in the south in Mexico, and your monarch butterflies, I do believe, and you are incentivized to travel up into the U.S. to migrate up. And then at the end of the game, you want to bring as many as you can back down to Mexico. So it kind of simulates the year of the butterfly's migration. Very cool. It's hard to talk about this game without mentioning that it's by Elizabeth Hargraves, the designer of Wingspan. I think I actually like this game better than Wingspan. I do quite enjoy Wingspan. But this kind of reasoning I really like, where you're trying to go basically find a good path for your butterflies to go up, get a bunch of bonuses, and take them back down. So that's number 6, Mariposas. Number 5, I also don't own. It's another game from Yellow, same makers of Katara. It's called Korra, Rise of an Empire. And yes, it's a fun little, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but Avatar has characters named Katara and Korra. Anyway, regardless. In Korra, Rise of an Empire, you are playing as a Greek city-state, and you do a couple actions on your turn, and you're trying to build up your city-states, advance technologically, do some military stuff and whatnot. The game might be broken. I found a combo the last time I played the game that I thought was just way too good. Of course, you draft a card, so people probably wouldn't have let me get that if they'd known what was going on. I've played this one 3 times since doing a demo of it at Origins, and it's intriguing. On your turn, you roll a couple of dice, and then you have to choose actions based on what you rolled. So higher rolls are better, but there's ways to mitigate. Fascinating game. It's not getting as much buzz as I feel like it should, but yeah, check this one out. Korra, Rise of an Empire. Number 4 is a game that is very high on the Boardgamegeek Top 100. This is the one I had played before the past year. I actually got this at a library a couple years ago. This is Castles of Burgundy. I've only played this on Board Game Arena within the past year, but I forgot how much I loved it until I played it on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena adaptation is fantastic. I also recently, this past Sunday, won a copy of this because there was a used game exchange at the board game group I was part of, and somehow I wound up with this one, which was amazing. So yeah, in this game it's full of hexagons, which we all know are the bestigons, and you have this little outline or this little kingdom. You start with just your castle. You're trying to get all these various different pieces like special buildings, pastures, ships, things like that. It is a Steffenfeld game, much like earlier I was talking about Trajan. And so essentially, each action gives you marginal points, and if you get the margins better than other people, you're going to win the game. But there's a lot of fun, interesting interactions. This is a game that allows you to feel clever when you find all these little combos. So that is number 4, Castles of Burgundy. Number 3 is Everdell. So this is a game where my wife Amy was at the local game store and wound up picking it up because she had heard of it and she loves the theme of these anthropomorphic woodland creatures, kind of like her favorite game, Root. I talked about on my top 100. Everdell is a fascinating game in that there's all these little combos in the game. It's a tableau builder mostly. You're in a worker placement game. You're trying to recruit these various woodland creatures and buildings for your own little town, and you can only have 15, so you have to maximize your points within those. The theme is very fun. The artwork is great. There's a lot of expansions for this too. I say a lot. There's like 3 expansions of this that I think we're going to get at some point. Amy and I have had a lot of fun playing this 2-player, but it's also really good at 3 and 4. Yeah, highly recommend Everdell. Number 2 is a game I owned last year but had not played. It is, oh gosh, this is the heaviest one here, I think. Tapestry. So this is by Jamie Stegmaier. He's the designer, same guy who designed Scythe, publisher of Wingspan. And this is, it says, a civilization game. I picked this up used for 50% off, actually. I believe it had been a demo copy at the board game store that I usually go to, Games Unlimited. And this is a civilization game that doesn't feel like a civilization game. I'm reluctant to turn it over and show you the back because things are going to fall off, maybe. But here you see you have these 4 tracks around the board. And on your turn, you just move up one of the tracks and you do whatever thing it says. So you might do some technology, you might do science, you might explore, you might do some military. But it doesn't feel like the typical civilization game. And this is a game where your actions are basically scripted. You only have 4 different options you can do on your turn. Move up one of these 4 tracks, and they always are the same things. If you go to this spot, you always get a little tile and then explore on the board. And yet, despite being so scripted, there are so many complexities in this game. And it's possible to do crazy things. It's a hard game to explain without going into way too much depth about. There's a lot of like little different mini games because you have your city board and you're filling in these polyomino tiles. You're managing your resources. You're trying to upgrade your civilization by building these little buildings on your track. You have your own special abilities, something I always love. Fantastic game. There's a new expansion coming out for us soon. I don't even have the first expansion, but I want to get both of them. That's Tapestry, number 2. And number 1 is no surprise to anyone who has been playing. Oh gosh, this one is heavier than Tapestry. Oh my gosh. Then to anyone who's been playing games with me in the past year, I've played this game so many times now. Terraforming Mars. This is my second favorite game of all time at the moment, behind Feast Road, and still holding on to that spot. So the theme is Terraforming Mars, obviously. You're playing as a corporation. Everyone has a special corporation or a different corporation with special abilities. And there's a ton of cards in this game. The base one comes with 233 cards, it says. And I have all 3 of the major expansions and some promos. But in this game, you're getting points by terraforming Mars and increasing your resource production. This is a tableau builder. You're putting cards down that allow you to do special abilities or give you tags, as they say in the game. But this game, more than any other game I've ever played, in my opinion, makes you feel clever. In that on your turn, you are doing things and you'll be like, I think I'll do this and this turn, and let's see how that works out. And 9 times out of 10, it works out fantastically. Now, again, kind of like a Stefan Feld game, if you're doing things, the marginal points better than the people that you're playing the game with, you're going to win the game. But everyone, even the people who don't win the game, tend to feel like they are playing extremely well. And it's addicting because of that. It takes a little bit longer than most games that I want to get to the table a ton, but it plays well with 2, 3, 4, and 5. Solo game's fine. I played it once, but not a huge fan. The expansions are really good for the most part. I only even like Turmoil, the one that's a little bit more controversial. Um, but yeah, Terraforming Mars. This is a fantastic game, and you owe it to yourself to play it if you haven't yet. So, those were my top 10 games that were not on my 2020 top 100 list. Let me know if you have any ideas for what top 10 list you'd like to see from me or other things. I have never done a board game review, but I suppose I could. But yeah, thanks for watching and have a good one.